everyone, this is Lori Barnes back with another new moon video. This one is in Scorpio and it's going to bring intense shifts. Stay tuned to learn more. The new moon in Scorpio is coming this Friday, November the 1st. It's going to bring in the new month with some pretty intense energy. Like any new moon, you will want to do your new moon intentions during the new moon phase. So you're going to want to know when that is. If you're on the west coast of the US, the new moon starts early Friday morning at 5:47 a.m. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be at 8:47 a.m. And if you're in Rome, Italy, where I'm broadcasting from, it'll be at 1:47 p.m. So check your time zone. And remember, we're in the time of the year where some places change for daylight savings. This new moon in Scorpio will be at 9 degrees. Some of the key words for Scorpio are emotional intensity. This is a sign of depth. People who have planets in this sign, especially sun, moon, or rising sign, are known for wanting to peel back the layers and going deep into a subject. There is trust and loyalty that is associated with Scorpio. They like to probe, and Scorpio is known for liking to have power or to earn or gain power. It is a provocative sign. It likes to poke and get into deep conversations. This is a fixed sign. There's a strong-willed nature to Scorpio, and Scorpios are known for having great instinct. Some of the characteristics of Scorpio that are more on the shadow side are intensity as well. It can be a bit more challenging if it's coming from the shadow side. There can be secrecy, jealousy. There can be pushing the buttons too far or wanting to have power or control over people. And maybe one of the more difficult shadow side characteristics of Scorpio is destruction or to destroy. Scorpio is a water element sign, meaning that it operates more on emotions and instinct and intuition. It's a fixed modality sign, so that makes Scorpio very determined. Like most fixed signs, there is a stubborn nature to Scorpio. This is a sign that's very resilient, it's tenacious and resistant to change. Some of the archetypes associated with Scorpio are the transformer, the detective, the researcher, the inquisitor, and the intense lover. If you watch Star Wars, there are inquisitors in one of the series, and when I think of them, I really think of Scorpio. It's interesting. Scorpio has three symbols. It has the scorpion, the eagle, and the phoenix. The Scorpio symbol is for the survival, that self-protection that Scorpio has. It's the intensity and the instincts that the Scorpio has to have to live on the ground. It also has to do with the defensive nature and the shadow work that are oftentimes associated with Scorpio. Scorpions tend to live concealed or away. That correlates with Scorpio and the way that they tend to be very stone-faced, and you can't necessarily read their face. They can be very stoic. They're great card players because they're not going to give away their hand. Then you have the eagle, and of course the eagle is a bird and it's flying up high in the sky. So this brings in the traits of Scorpio that have to do with the vision and the insight, perception. Having that higher vision brings that greater perspective. You can have a better strategy because you can see more. There is strength associated with the eagle, and strength is associated with Scorpio. The eagle has that focused vision. It has the precision and clarity, and these are all associated with Scorpio. And then the third symbol is the phoenix, which is when we bring in transformation. You often probably hear transformation is associated with Scorpio, and regeneration, renewal. This is where the phoenix comes in, and these traits that have to do with the phoenix, because it's the bird that burns into ashes and then is reborn again out of those ashes. So it has to do with that resilience and the empowerment that comes from regenerating yourself, and it has to do with transcendence. Those are the three symbols that are associated with Scorpio. The vibe of this new moon is quite complex. They usually are because there's lots of things going on in the sky. So I want to share with you some of the vibes that are happening at the new moon, and then I will show you the different configurations or the aspects where I'm drawing this information from. This new moon is going to be a good time for self-reflection, to go deep into oneself and kind of peel back your own layers, and maybe you'll discover something that then helps you transform or renew or regenerate. Scorpio is known for its emotional depth and intensity. So that is a vibe that we are all likely to experience as we go into this weekend. Peeling back the layers, right? That is keywords associated with Scorpio. Also, that inner strength and resilience. The planet Saturn is making an aspect with the sun and moon. So it's going to bring in some of that resilience. It's going to help congeal, to help solidify that vibe. And then there's empowerment that can come with this energy and focused insight. And I'm drawing that from the sun and the moon and Mercury, which are all traveling through Scorpio at the new moon. Now, there is one very explosive configuration that we all need to be aware of, and it's been active before the new moon, and that is Mars is across from Pluto. This has been building up for a while as Mars has been going through Cancer. It can be quite explosive. There can be more arguments or more aggression. You could say in a positive way, there can be more assertive energy. If it's something that you are working on, if there's just something you're putting a lot of energy into and there's some sort of power association with that, maybe you feel empowered by the work that you're doing, then do a lot of that over this weekend because you will be doing the vibe. Mars is also making a trine with Neptune, which is going to bring in more inspiration or creativity for how you take action towards things. Mars is about action. When it's making a connection with Neptune, that action can become a little more diffuse, but it can also be more creative. It can take away some of the rigidity that comes with fixed signs so that Mars can actually go and do something even with all of this fixed Scorpio energy at the new moon. This is a good time. This is a vibe for contemplation and solitude. If you already like to spend time alone, you may really enjoy this new moon if you take time away and really meditate or think, focus, like kind of go inside and see what's going on in there. Give yourself the time to let your mind wander and see what comes out of it. But also with Mars so active at the new moon, you would want to take action on something. So it's like taking the time to meditate and just kind of like feel what's going on inside of you, peeling back the layers, but also then making a strategy and actually taking some action. That would be a good way to use the energy. With the Mars Pluto there, you want to do something with that energy. With Mercury in Scorpio, there can be some depth to the thinking that is going on and maybe even some clarity. As we go into the new moon, Mars has just left a sextile with Uranus. So there can be some unexpected change happening. There can be some more rebellious energy coming in because Mars picked that energy up as it's moving into its opposition with Pluto. And then with all this Scorpio energy coming in, we could find that there's a reason to, or it's a good time to release some things. Maybe there's some attachments that it's time to let go of. So you can open space for some renewing energy to come in. So that is the vibe. There's lots of different things going on at the same time. Let's look at some of the aspects. The first one is, of course, the conjunction between the sun and the moon. A new moon always means that the sun and the moon are in the same place, as you can see here in the circle. And with Scorpio, we've already covered that this is a good time for self-reflection. It could also be a time where you have to face some uncomfortable truths or some hidden truths. Allow that to happen. Take some space away and go through it. The fastest way is through it and not to avoid it. You could also get lost in a project or some sort of research, some sort of analysis. That would be a good way to use the Scorpio new moon energy. With the trine to Saturn, it's going to bring some grounding to this. It may also indicate that there could be difficulty with change. It may be easier to just kind of cocoon and be by yourself and let all this energy play out all by itself. Another way that could show up is being in with others, but it's like an echo chamber where everyone is in agreement. That might feel more comfortable than going outside of that chamber and hearing other people's opinions and views that may be different than your own. And of course, I'm saying this as we're heading into an election in the United States that's quite contentious, and that Mars Pluto is really representing this aggressive energy that we're experiencing. A way to use the Saturn trine sun moon is to do some deep contemplation, do some introspection. You may find that you are stubbornly resilient, like you're going to plow through and get something done. And if it is a really important project, this could be beneficial for you. But if you do find all of this energy overwhelming, I would take some time this weekend in solitude. Now, looking at Mercury and the new moon and the sun, they're all in Scorpio. So this can bring a lot of depth to how you think, going deeper, 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 and getting more and more insight, and having a lot of energy for that, because this is a Mars ruled sign. Scorpio is the receptive sign of Mars. All of the planets, not the sun and the moon, but the personal planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, each rule two signs, one in the active polarity and one in the receptive. Scorpio is the receptive sign of Mars. So Mars is very active at this new moon, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Mars in a minute. Mercury is trine to Mars. It's a tight trine as Mercury is heading to meet Mars at 29 degrees. At the new moon, Mercury's at 28 degrees of Scorpio. This will bring clear mental focus. If you have to write anything, if you have to present anything, if you're doing a YouTube video, you can have pretty clear focus and maybe some great persuasive speech. If you're trying to get people to buy your course or sign up for coaching, something like that, this could be a good time to work on that. And a lot of mental drive. Mars is a very action-oriented planet, and Mercury in Mars sign brings together Mercury, which is communication, Mars, which is action, in a trine, and it's a water trine. So it's going to be a lot of depth and clarity. Have a lot of fun with that, because this could be a great time to work on the written words and use your instincts and intuition to help shape any language that you want to get out into the world. There's a water trine happening at the new moon. We have Mercury at 28 degrees of Scorpio, Mars at 29 degrees of Cancer, and Neptune at 27 degrees of Pisces. So it's a pretty tight water trine. These are harmonious types of relationships. It's an easy flow of energy. You can tap more into your instincts and go to the depths, as depths is definitely a key word of this new moon. And it can also bring about some creative or strategic problem solving. Bringing in Neptune, that brings in even more creativity, some mystical energy, maybe even some confusion. The shadow side of Neptune is illusion and deception. So you do want to watch out for that. But on the positive side, definitely more creativity. If you're an artist or a musician, this can be a really great time to compose, to write, to create. Shortly after the new moon, Mercury is going to move into Sagittarius. It's going to move the day after the new moon. Mercury moves pretty fast, so the trine isn't going to last for very long before Mercury moves on into the next sign. Mars, very active at this new moon. It's the ruler of the new moon. It's the ruler of the sun in Scorpio, and it's opposite Pluto. There's going to be a lot of energy leading up to the new moon and over the weekend. Mars opposite Pluto, it can be power struggles. It can be power under, over, or empowerment. There can be confrontations, even violence. So do be careful. This is not the weekend or even the week to walk down the dark alley, right? So be aware of your surroundings and your environment. If in your personal chart you have any placements in the cardinal signs in the late degrees, your chart is highly activated by this. You may really be feeling this. If you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Like, this is going on. Pluto has been in the late degrees of Capricorn for quite a while. It went into Aquarius and retrograded back into Capricorn a few times. This is the last time. It's getting ready to move into Aquarius, and it won't retrograde back into Capricorn. So you could say this is kind of like the final message. This is the end, or this is wrapping up the energy of Pluto in the late degrees of the cardinal signs. If you have major placements in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you're really going to be feeling this, and you really want to be aware of it. Like, I'm glad you're watching this, because you know that Mars is across from Pluto, and this can be intense, it can be violent, it can be aggressive, assertive, it can be fights and arguments. And of course, we're seeing that in the news. We see the wars, we see the election advertisements and interviews. Like, it's very contentious energy right now. Mars is also trine Neptune. It's going to soften it a little bit, not enough to make it go away, but you can tap into that Mars trine Neptune energy for more creativity and inspiration. There can also be insecurity around taking action, because Mars is already in Cancer, and that sign isn't as close to the type of energy that Mars likes. You know, Mars likes to be in Aries, to be direct, or in Scorpio, it's direct, but it's more inward focused. Cancer is more protective and doesn't go at things directly. It kind of zigzags. And then when you bring Neptune in, it makes it even more diffuse. So you may have all this energy and all these things that you want to do, and then find that it's really hard to go at it directly. Try try not to. Try to see, how can I do this more indirectly, or how can I bring some softness into this? Am I going to go do this by the ocean, by the sea, bringing water into the mix? Go sit by a pond or take a bath, take more breaks, bring in more water, bring in those water diffusers, get essential oils in the air. So if you bring in some of the Neptunian types of things and the Cancer types of things, then you're really working more with that flow and maybe making it easier for Mars then to go take its action. Then there's that Mars sextile Uranus. And remember that Mars has already passed this aspect. It's moving away from it, but it picked up that energy and it's carrying it with it into the opposition with Pluto. So there is some rebellion built into Mars as it's moving into the opposition with Pluto. There can be unexpected things that come out of that. It is still somewhat controlled because both Cancer and Taurus are more controlled in their actions. This chart shows the trine between Mars and Neptune, and this chart shows the sextile between Mars and Uranus. Now, Mars is also at the 29 degree, just like Pluto, which is the anaretic degree. It's the end of the sign. So there's this feeling of like, I have to get something done. I'm running out of time. It's my last chance. So there's that also that kind of energy in the air of just that pressure to finish the work that was trying to happen while the planet was traveling through that sign. Both Mars and Pluto are going through the anaretic degree. Pluto is a much slower moving planet, so it's going to spend a lot more time at that degree than Mars, but Mars is going to go retrograde and it's going to cross over this degree 2 more times. So you want to pay attention to what's happening for you in October and November. And then in December, Mars is going to go retrograde. So you're getting a preview now of what will likely be the theme or topic of the Mars retrograde. Mars goes retrograde on December 6th, and it's going to travel from 6 degrees of Leo back to 17 degrees of Cancer. And I'm going to give you all of the dates right here. So you can see that the pre-shadow period started in early October, and that was at 17 degrees of Cancer, because that's where Mars is going to retrograde back to. On January 6th is when Mars is going to retrograde from Leo into Cancer. So if you want to know when it's going to change signs, here it is. And then Mars will go direct on February 24th of next year, 2025. And then the shadow of the Mars retrograde ends on May 2nd. That's when Mars travels back to 6 degrees of Leo, where it originally went retrograde. So you can take a screenshot of this if you want to track the dates on your calendar for Mars retrograde. Some of the things that come up during a Mars retrograde cycle is that Mars is about action. So it could impact your physical energy. You may have less energy. You may be more lethargic or tired. And you want to pay attention to how your energy levels are now as we move into December, or when we get to December and it goes retrograde. I would start paying attention now to your energy levels and where you want to put your energy. Like, what activities do you want to put your energy into, and what don't you want to put your energy into? Because there may be things that you're going to want or need to cut out of your life in order to really focus on what's important. Mars is a planet that one of the things that it indicates is cutting. It can cut things out. It represents surgery, for example. So you want to think about, where's your energy going? What are my energy levels like? Track it, journal about it, and then watch what happens during Mars retrograde, because you may have to make some adjustments. In your chart, you're going to want to find the Cancer house and the Leo house, because that's going to give you even more information as to what life topics are likely to be activated for you. And I have a slide in today's presentation that will give you the keywords for each house. Here's some ideas of what to do. We have all this energy going on, and you may be thinking, well, what am I supposed to do? First, remember to set your new moon intentions in the new moon phase. And here are 3 ideas of things that you can do. The first thing is a Phoenix intention setting and release activity, and bringing the Phoenix in because that is one of the symbols of Scorpio. You want to set an intention, maybe something for some transformation or renewal that you would like to make. You want to write it down, and usually there's an emotional component to that. I would say that whatever it is that you want to do, there's something maybe physically or tangibly that you have to do, but also there's going to be an emotional component to that. So think about both of those things, write them down, and then burn it. Another thing to do is to work on this shadow stuff. We all have a shadow. And what is a shadow? It's those things that are unconscious to us, things that we may project onto others, or parts of our personality that we just don't see, we don't recognize. So you can work on that. You can think about, where are you blocked? What fears are coming up for you? These are things that oftentimes we don't want to talk to anyone else about, and you don't have to. This can be completely your work, and you can write it down. You can keep it all in your head, whatever works for you, but start thinking about, like, where might I be blocked? Where might I be putting something on somebody else? And usually the key to that is when you become really, really, really upset about something and it's all the other person's fault. I often find that there's always something in myself where I do the same thing, but I'm not owning it. So this can be a time where you're more open to doing that work, do that detective work. This is Scorpio. Scorpio loves detective work. It likes to research, likes to go deep and peel back those layers. So that's something that you can do for yourself. Another idea for you is to bring the water element in, because Scorpio is a water element sign, and do a cleansing ritual. You can get crystals or rocks. You may have some already in your house, and maybe you want to do a cleansing. You can put them in some salt water, or if you're near a sea or an ocean, you can get some salt water from the ocean and put your rocks in there and cleanse them so that they're renewed and refreshed. Because if you use your rocks and gems, if you work with them in your day-to-day routines, you should cleanse them every now and then, because they absorb energy. You can use them to help you release some of those old attachments or old thoughts and behaviors, because ultimately what you're trying to do is invite fresh new energy in. You want to regenerate, renew. These are all things associated with Scorpio. Now, when it comes to your chart, you want to find the planets in your chart. You can get a free astrology chart if you don't have one. There's two places here I have on the slide here that you can use. Those are the two that I use and that I recommend. Once you have your chart, you'll want to find where the planets are falling in your chart, and it's going to give you more information. So you find Uranus in Taurus, Jupiter is traveling through Gemini, Mars is in Cancer, the Sun, New Moon, and Mercury are all in Scorpio, and of course, Mercury is going to move into Sagittarius right after the new moon. Venus is in Sagittarius, Pluto is in Capricorn, and Neptune and Saturn are traveling through Pisces. This is the list of keywords associated with the houses. So once you find out where the different planets are, which house they're in your chart, then you will look at this list and you can see what parts of your life are activated by those planets and by the configurations that I described earlier. Here's a quote for you that relates to the Scorpio new moon. We don't have an author for this. Out of the darkness, she found her light and became a guiding star. I think that's quite lovely. I will be back for the Taurus full moon, which is coming up on November 15th, and it will be at 24 degrees. I hope you join me. If you would like to schedule a consultation with me, you can find me at loribarnesastrology.com, or you can use the QR code. Thank you so much for joining me today. Ciao.